The Liberal leadership vote is underway. It's a week-long process, mainly through the internet, and the results will be done this Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, even as I say that, I can't help but thinking of the obvious question. Online voting? Can you think of a process more susceptible to fraud and hacking than that? Now, I'm not even suggesting that the party that gave us the Libranos and ad scam and the ongoing Quebec construction corruption scandals would engage in fraud or hacking itself. I'm thinking about more serious folks who might take an interest in choosing the leader of a Canadian party. Like maybe the People's Liberation Army Unit 61398? That's the hacking headquarters of China's military? What? Do you think the same folks who hacked into the Pentagon, into Nortel, into the New York Times, into Gmail, do you think they lack the ability to hack into the Liberal Party's super-duper secure internet system? Do you think they lack the resources? Do you think they lack the interest? The only question is if they think it's worth bothering to do it all, and which of the 6 candidates would be their favorite. Now, I don't know if the People's Republic of China thinks that the third-place party in Canada is worth meddling with, but I know that the People's Republic of San Francisco does. I'm talking about the far-left-wing San Francisco-based charities like the Tides Foundation and the Hewlett Foundation, and from New York, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund and Avaz.org, because they sure as hell want to influence this race, not through hacking, but through foreign-funded campaigns. Now, you'd think that would bug the Liberals, having foreign billionaires pull strings in their contest, especially American billionaires. That's the sort of thing that Liberals used to chafe against U.S. intervention, U.S. domination. I mean, the Liberals are the folks who opposed the free trade deal with the states, who brought in foreign investment review rules. You'd think they'd be a little less giddy about becoming a plaything for American heirs and heiresses looking for a new toy or a new colony. I refer in particular to Joyce Murray, the Liberal Party's candidate of choice for the American left. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, even though Justin Trudeau is the darling of the Ottawa Press Gallery, media party reporters only get 1 vote each. What actually matters is who has thousands of members and supporters around the country. And as the quirky Liberal contest rules show, the person with the most votes won't necessarily be the winner. It's actually tilted towards people who sign up supporters in the least Liberal parts of the country, because under these Liberal rules, each of Canada's 308 ridings gets the same clout to choose the leader. They get 100 points, they call them. So if there's a riding out there with just 50 Liberals voting, which is quite likely in some Western and Northern ridings, each of those votes is actually worth 2 points. But say in a downtown Toronto riding with 1,000 Liberal voters, each of those votes is only worth 1/10 of a point, because remember, the ridings are all weighted equally no matter how many votes are cast in each riding. So I mean, theoretically, if there was a riding with only 1 Liberal voting, his vote would be worth 100 points, exactly as much as the riding in the country with the largest Liberal population. My point is, this thing can be gamed. And it's a game that big U.S. money has decided to play. Not just any money. I'm not talking about Wall Street here. It's environmentalist money, extremist groups like the aforementioned Rockefeller Brothers Fund. We've talked about this before. They're the New York-based descendants of John D. Rockefeller, the greatest oil baron who ever have lived, who these descendants have decided out of guilt to spend his money attacking the oil industry. So back in 2008, they cooked up this political campaign that they called the Tar Sands campaign. I just showed you the cover page of it. Their plan was simple. Cut off all these pipelines. You see this map here? The pipelines coming out of the oil sands. Seriously, they were making these plans and maps 5 years ago before most Canadians had ever heard of Keystone XL or the Northern Gateway. These billionaires were on it. And now look at this. This is the list of lobby groups that they have hired to wage their multi-million-dollar campaign for them. Groups ranging from the Pembina Institute to Environmental Defence to Force Ethics, groups that pretend to be Canadian and have offices in Canada, but who take instructions and money from New York. Now, how much money? Well, $7 million a year for 5 years now. As you can see, that money is partly for lawsuits to gum up the system. But look at the second item there, organizing. Well, organizing what? Well, this is politics, and the apex of politics is organizing a leadership campaign to take over a political party, isn't it? Especially a tired, shrunken, demoralized political party like the Federal Liberals, who have basically invited any predator to take them over. Remember, it's not just party members who are allowed to vote for the leadership. Anyone in the whole country can, just by calling themselves a supporter. You don't even have to buy a membership. I mean, this isn't even a hostile takeover by foreigners. The Liberals positively invited it. They're easy pickings. A big brand name, a big history, but marshal a few tens of thousands of one-night stand supporters, and the party could be yours. Sound crazy? Yeah, crazy like a fox. I mean, it works. We know this because these same U.S.-based foundations have done it before in Canada, twice now. They installed an environmental extremist, Gregor Robertson, as the mayor of Vancouver. He wasn't just a recipient of support from these mega foundations. He actually used to be a director of the Tides Canada Foundation. Seriously, how awesome is that? I mean, the only thing that would beat that would be if a Rockefeller himself would have been crowned mayor of Vancouver. Now, Robertson didn't even try to hide his big U.S. backing. He actually had the audacity to accept outright financial donations from foreigners. Seriously, letting foreign money into a Vancouver city election. And as political payback, he has led the war against the oil sands in Vancouver, threatening to do everything he can to shut down pipelines and tanker ships. Now, 2 years ago, the same group of environmental activists decided to go after a bigger prize. The Liberal leadership of BC, same sort of issue as the federal Liberal Party. The BC Liberals were in decline, their membership numbers were down, and they too had a weird voting system that made it ripe for a takeover. So the Tides Foundation went straight to work. One of their tentacles, called the Dogwood Initiative, that has received hundreds of thousands of dollars of money from Tides, made a deliberate strategy to install Christy Clark as the leader instead of the more conservative Kevin Falcon. It was a win-win for the Tides and the Dogwood Initiative. If Christy Clark would go on to win the next election, which looks unlikely now, she'd be more environmentalist than the alternative. But if she lost in the general election to Adrian Dix of the NDP, as now looks likely, well, all the better. Tides actually has two horses in the BC race, Adrian Dix and Christy Clark. Now, like the federal Liberals, the BC Liberals use that quirky points system. So by targeting the ridings with the lowest membership, a coalition of U.S.-funded environmental groups, many with Canadian charitable status, were able to tip the balance. In the end, Christy Clark only won by 52% of all the points. The 5,000 or so members signed up by the Dogwood Initiative, Eco Justice, West Coast Environmental Law, they surely tipped the balance for her. At least they say so. They can't stop bragging about it in left-wing newspapers like the Georgia Straight, where they laid out their strategy in meticulous detail, claiming credit for choosing the premier. Well, once you've chosen Vancouver's mayor and BC's premier, I mean, what's next? You've got a tried and true formula, U.S. money, laundered through Canadian charitable numbers, going to Canadian lobby groups with active membership lists coming in to take over vulnerable political parties with open leadership contests and quirky rules. Yeah, sounds like the federal Liberals, right? Well, it's happening. David Suzuki, whose foundation has its own charitable number and takes $1 million in foreign money every year, got the ball rolling. Take a listen.
I looked at the various platforms, and when I saw Joyce Murray's platforms, I said, wow, this is something substantive. It's the sustainability part and saying that we need a price on carbon and the cooperation of progressive elements. Altogether, substantial issues, thank God.
Now, that's not the first time that David Suzuki has made a partisan endorsement. Here he is campaigning for Dalton McGuinty in the last election, despite being on the board of a charity at the time, despite the CBC's policies that no on-air talent may be partisan. David Suzuki didn't give a damn. He's partisan. You can live with it, and you can pay his salary. Well, Suzuki is the biggest ego in the group here, but the real muscle flexors are folks like Eric Swanson. Do you remember him? His Dogwood Initiative boasted of signing up 1,600 people to go to testify before the Northern Gateway Pipeline panel, just to jam up the hearings. He even called it Mob the Mic, just to slow things down. And in fact, the hearings were in fact delayed by a full year because of being swamped with junk requests like that. Here's Eric Swanson on TV bragging about how he'll take foreign money, he'd take money from anyone to fight against Canadian industry. Look.
Why are you allowing foreign interests to dictate to Canadians what's best for us?
If I got duffel bags of money delivered from Martians from outer space, I would still take that money.
I'm sure he would. So you've got David Suzuki and his charity backing Joyce Murray. You've got Eric Swanson of the Dogwood Initiative that takes hundreds of thousands of dollars from foreign charity groups backing Murray. You've got the supposedly nonpartisan Lead Now group telling people to sign up to support Murray. And you've got the New York-based lobby group called Avaz, which claims millions of online members around the world, spamming their email lists, telling people to sign up as overnight liberals to vote for the one candidate who will merge the parties to the left. And surprise, surprise, the candidate just happens to be Joyce Murray as well. Stop for a second. I mean, I talked about the risk of China hacking the liberal election, but what about a New York-based group inviting its online members to join this liberal system? Will the liberals really be able to screen out Avaz members from, say, New York? I mean, they haven't screened out New York money from the contest, have they? And oh, there is money. I talked about the Rockefeller brothers' $7 million a year, but that is chump change compared to what other left-wing U.S. environmental extremists are spending. Look at this. This is the Hewlett Foundation out of San Francisco. They're spending $100 million a year, just this one San Francisco foundation, fighting, quote, climate change. They fund the Dogwood Initiative. That's Eric Swanson's group. He'll take money from anyone, remember? And he's leading the BC fight for Joyce Murray. If I had to bet, I'd still bet on Justin Trudeau. I'm guessing he's China's choice too. I mean, given his father's love for that communist regime and his brother Sasha's lingering fondness for dictators like Fidel Castro, I think China probably likes Justin Trudeau. But U.S. left-wingers have their own choice, Joyce Murray. And they're not hacking the system. They're gaming the system. And they're flooding it with money and strategy. Who do you think's going to win? I like the shiny pony. But if an anti-oil sands, anti-pipeline extremist named Joyce Murray games the point system on Sunday, don't be shocked. The people backing her have already conquered Vancouver and BC. You don't think they can take over the rump party that used to be the mighty Liberals?